Thank you, Adam. Thank you, Dave. Thank you, Jennifer Willis, who is leading our campaign here in Oldham County, the Chamber, and all of you for coming out this morning. I am super excited to be with you because this has been a phenomenal year thus far for me. I came in January as the new president and CEO of Metro United Way. And if you haven't heard, it's our 100th anniversary year this year. And so it's kind of a big year. And I joke with the team, but I came in January and I said, this is our 100th year, this is amazing, what do we have planned? And they said, well, we were waiting for the new CEO to get here. So we've had a couple of things to catch up on, and they had a great logo, so we had some ground to work with. But it's been an amazing year for me to get out to the 7 counties that we serve and to really understand the impact that we're having. And I knew of United Way because I've spent the last 7 years living in Louisville, Kentucky, and 5 of those years working for Mayor Greg Fisher in city government. And so clearly understand how important our EMS departments are and the work that you all do. Thank you. I know it is sometimes a very thankless job. And I loved working in city government and understanding just how our cities and communities try to deliver excellent services to those who live there. And while I came here 7 years ago, somewhat dragging my feet, I will admit, because I am from Connecticut originally, so a Yankee, as my husband likes to call me, and had been in the Coast Guard, as Adam shared, and so I've lived all over the country. I was in San Francisco and Miami, Florida, and Washington, D.C., and Cambridge, Massachusetts, and I really was not sure what I was going to find when I came to Louisville, Kentucky. And so we moved here for my husband, who was born and raised here, for his career, and he said, just give me 3 or 4 years, and then we can go anywhere you want. I now know he had a plan, right? So we showed up here in June of 2010, and I was pregnant with twins. So one, knock her up, and then, we'll see what happens. I know this is being recorded, so I should be careful. But his family is all here, and they have been extremely generous with babysitting and support and all of that. But the community also here is just so phenomenal. And what I say to my friends is that living in this community, and I think of it as the 7 counties that Metro United Way serves, because it really is a region. It's not just downtown Louisville. I mean, it is all of the surrounding counties as well. But the presence or absence of one individual in this community truly makes a difference. And that is something I had not seen in any of the other cities that I've lived in. It's really hard in San Francisco or Miami or Washington, D.C. or Boston or these other places to feel like you can make a difference. There's just so many people, there's so many issues, there's so many things going on, and there's so many folks with more money and more political connections than you. But when I got here, I realized that there are so many open doors and so many opportunities to help move the needle in the community, and there's just not enough people to do all of the work that needs to be done. And so for that reason, people are very excited whenever anybody says, well, I want to help, to open the door and to pull up a chair and say, well, great, we need your help. And I really appreciate that. I've loved being a part of this community, and I've now adopted it fully as my home. I'm trying to convince my Yankee parents and my 3 other brothers, I have one of them who already moved here, to come down from Connecticut and relocate, and I've just adopted this community as my home. And so I was so excited to be able to take this role at Metro United Way, because I know that as hard as city government works to try to improve our community and deliver excellent services, they can't do it alone. It really does take a unified effort of corporations, philanthropists, city government, nonprofits, and individuals all coming together to make sure that we create the community that we want to live in and raise our children in. And that's why I was so excited about this role, because for 100 years, Metro United Way has been doing just that. They've been uniting people and resources around our community's most pressing problems and issues. And today, we are fighting for the education, health, and financial stability of every person in the 7 counties we serve. And so when I talk about those 7 counties, they are Jefferson, Oldham, Shelby, and Bullitt counties here in Kentucky, and Clark, Floyd, and Harrison over in southern Indiana. Some people like to say that's an ocean away. I can tell you I've been on the ocean. It's not that far. They really are. Very close to us. And so we've been really doing that. And the piece that has been most exciting for me, but also frustrating, is to come in and to see the great work that we do with our partners across these communities, and the fact that we are actually moving the needle in the places where we're investing our resources, whether that be volunteers or that be dollars. We are actually changing lives. And so there's a lot that we need to address. Our children are not starting school ready. Many of them are falling behind. We see kids that enter kindergarten are 3 years behind their peers. If you start kindergarten 3 years behind, it is impossible for you to make that up. We know that children don't get all of the social and emotional supports that they need in their homes or in the school system, and so they need to access really great out-of-school time programs, but not all kids have the resources to be able to do that, or families have the resources to be able to do that. So we know that that support that we provide for nonprofits who do great out-of-school time programming, whether it's over the summer or after school hours, is really important. And we are seeing impact. The places where we invest, we know that kids are more likely to enter kindergarten ready to learn. We know that kids have the social emotional skills that they need to graduate high school ready. My frustration is that we do not have enough resources to bring those solutions to every single person in need. And that's really the challenge, and that's the opportunity that a role like the one I have now or an organization like Metro United Way has. We have the opportunity to share with those who have potentially the means, whether they be financial or just time to volunteer or brilliance in your brains to share with our organizations as volunteer board members, like we have many of ours here. We know that if you understand that there are solutions, you may help us bring the resources that we need in to scale those solutions to every single person in need. And so let me talk a little bit about those solutions in a little bit more depth and detail. I mentioned the early childhood education. In our region, about 53% of the kids that enter kindergarten enter ready to learn. That means 47% are not ready to learn. So what does that look like? It means the kids don't have potentially the motor skills to hold a crayon or a pencil, or the social emotional skills to sit in a classroom with other kids and just be a part of the day without hitting or running around or not being able to sit still. Or they don't have the vocabulary to understand what the teacher's even saying to them. And so that's a real challenge that we know we can address, because when we put them in our excellence academies, or we do work with pediatricians' offices or private child care centers, which is part of the work that Metro United Way does through our Ready for Kindergarten or Ready for K Alliance, we know that we give them best practices and tools that then those parents, those grandparents, those early child care centers, those Head Start programs, they can use to make those kids ready for kindergarten in those 0 to 5 years. They can invest in their development in ways that really do help them start school prepared, which is fantastic. But now we need to make sure that every child who needs that in those 0 to 5 years has the ability to access those resources. We also know, as I mentioned, that we need kids to be able to participate in out-of-school time programs. Those programs like cross country or ballet or tennis or whatever those programs are that hopefully many of you have been able to invest in for your own kids or grandkids. Not everybody has the luxury to do that. And so we invest in nonprofit partners like the Boys and Girls Club and others that make sure that they have spaces for kids to go to that are accessible, to participate in those types of programs, because those are the programs. If you all, how many participated in an after-school program? Sport, music program, show of hands, raise them up, come on, it's early in the morning. There we go, okay, yeah. You probably got a lot out of that, right? And it's not just the fun of playing and engaging in that sport, but it's how do you engage in a team, right? It's how do you learn to lose and then manage your feelings about losing. I've got 3 kids, as Adam said. My daughter hates to lose, and I'm trying to work with her on the fact that, you cannot blow up the game because you've lost. Nobody's going to want to play with you again, right? But you don't learn that unless you are in those types of environments. So those are really important for kids. It's not just a nice to have, it's a need to have. Kids need to have that to complement what they're learning in the academic space so that then they can thrive and they can graduate college and career ready. But the piece that I am really excited about moving forward on are the 2 other components of the work that we do that we want to link more closely with those first 2 on the education side. And so that is the financial stability work and the health and basic needs work that we do. Because it should be pretty intuitive. If we invest in these children in out-of-school time programs and in the classrooms and in those 0 to 5 years, that is fantastic and wonderful. But if those kids then go home to an unstable environment, where the adults in their lives are struggling, whether it's to pay the bills, keep the utility on, the lights on, keep a roof over their head, put food on the table, or just not be in maybe a relationship where there's a lot of fighting or a lot of tension in the home. If kids go home to that environment, everything that we invest in them in the other areas is significantly diminished. And so it's really important that Metro United Way also invests in nonprofit partners who focus on financial stability, financial empowerment, health, and basic needs. So we're making sure that people have the safety nets they need if they hit those tough times to be able to access support so that they don't lose their home and they don't become homeless. In JCPS, in Jefferson County, we know that over 6,000 students are homeless, and those are just the ones we know of. So how hard is it for you to actually absorb what's going on in the classroom when you're thinking about, are we sleeping in the car tonight? Am I gonna have a bed? Where are we gonna get food? Things that children should not be thinking about. And really, individuals in our country in this day and age shouldn't be having to worry about either. And so making sure that those things there are really important. And the opportunity for United Way is that last year we invested in 99 different partners across our 7 counties. And when I say invested in them, we provided financial support to 99 different partners. Now we partnered with 200 plus partners across those 7 counties, because there's many that we just work with in collaboration, but we don't actually provide funding to. And through those partnerships, about 20,000 children accessed quality out-of-school time programming. So that's fantastic, right? Kids who needed it were able to get access to these great out-of-school time programs and supports. We also provided financial stability and empowerment training and career pathing and other things that help individuals get the resources they need to provide for themselves and their families to 20,000 adults. That's great. Now here's the disconnect. Those adults weren't necessarily connected to those 20,000 children, right? How much more powerful would it be if we could align the work that we do across those 99 partners to say, let's not just invest in those 20,000 kids, but let's invest in the adults that surround them, right? And all of the data and evidence, I'm a little bit of a data nerd, that's what I did in city government for a while. All of the data and evidence shows us that these 2 generational strategies, where you don't just invest in the parent or just the child, but you invest in both, accelerate outcomes for both of those individuals and for the family unit. And so we know that we can do more to help our nonprofit partners make those connections. And many of them do this on their own in 1 or 2s. But what we know is that the needs of individuals are so interconnected, right? So if you are going to a food pantry consistently to get food because you can't provide that for your family, well, you likely are struggling in some other areas. And so it's great that we have nonprofit partners out there that can provide the food. That's fantastic. But if they just give the food and then they let you walk out the door and walk it back in the door next week and walk out the door and walk back in the door, we're missing something, right? We're leaving a lot on the table because we're not taking a moment to say, wait a minute, I know that I am only set up as a food pantry to provide this food to you, but Metro United Way and our other partners have resources that could help you potentially address the financial needs that you have, can help you set up a bank account and a savings account for the first time, can help you think through career planning and maybe get you connected to job placement that's going to get you more money in your pocket so that if you don't have to come back next week or next month, you at least aren't coming back next year, right? And again, some of our partners do this instinctively, but it's hard because they're really focused here, and that's what they should be focused on. They're the direct service providers. And it's not always easy for them to lift up and say, oh, wait a minute, I need to make a warm handoff to this other agency for these individuals. And so as we look to the next 100 years, Metro United Way is really focused on how do we invest in that capacity and capability of the network of nonprofits across our communities so that it makes it easy for them to do that, so that we can provide for the holistic needs of the children, individuals, and families that they're already serving, and that folks like you and others have already invested in making sure there's resources there to help them. And so in this 100th year, we have a really big, audacious, crazy goal because we recognize that over 100 years, we have raised and invested in our community just shy of $1 billion. Now I say just shy, we're just shy by 36 million. Pennies, really. But Metro United Way, on average, raises between $25 and $30 million a year, right? So it wasn't that big of a stretch to think, in our 100th year, with this vision of transformational impact and what we can do to really accelerate the work that we're doing and the work that our partners are doing, let's stretch, let's try to go for $36 million. And we are well into that campaign. This Chamber Challenge is going to help, I think, infuse some more energy and momentum into that. Y'all just have to come up with $4 million. No, I'm just kidding. But we knew that we could really get there, and we've seen people respond. And so already we are well on our path to breaking into at least over 30 million, and we think we're going to hit that $36 million this year, which means we'd be able to celebrate with our community $1 billion, with a B, billion, $1 billion invested in our community over 100 years, right? And it's not just because that 36 million will break that mold for us and why we're going after, but again, we know the need is there. So last year, we had $7 million of unfunded requests for agency partners across our 7 counties. And when I say unfunded requests, there are many more requests that come in. We get tons of requests that come into Metro United Way. But the team of volunteers that we have, they look at all of those requests, they look at the agencies, they assess their fiscal integrity and their financial stewardship. They look at the outcomes that they're getting from the programs that they're providing. They look at the access that individuals have to those programs, and they make an assessment of, are these the types of things that we should be investing in with the dollars that are raised through Metro United Way? Are they going to help us get the outcomes that the community is saying we want you to help achieve across this community? We want every child to be able to have the education that they need. We want every individual to be able to have the financial stability that they need to provide for themselves and their families, and they all need to have the good health that it takes to make that all possible, right? So we make sure that the agencies that we're investing those dollars in meet all of those criteria. And last year, there were enough programs and initiatives out there that if we had $7 million more, we would have invested in them. So getting that $36 million, hitting that, will allow us to invest more money in the nonprofit partners that we know are doing great work out there that we need to invest in. We're also working to invest in the technology to link those partners more easily together. And so that idea of how do they provide these warm handoffs for one another? How do they have the capacity and the caseworkers necessary to flag when a family's coming in and say, wait a minute, let me just ask a couple more questions, because I think there's few other resources that we can help you access. And there's some places where this is happening. City government has some resources to do this. The local urban league is doing this with health navigators, but there's ones and twos, right? So how do we create a system around it? How do we make it more effective and more efficient? And so investing in the technology is part of this big campaign raise for us this year so that we're able to do that. And then we also recognize that for Metro United Way to be an agency and organization that's been around for 100 years and has raised over $20 million for the last 20 plus years, we have an endowment that is extremely small. Our endowment is just about $2.9 million. And so what that does for us is very little when we see big changes in our campaign each year. Last year, we saw a decrease in our campaign of about $1.6 million. And I can literally count on one hand where that $1.6 million loss came from. We had a big purchase of GE appliances by hire. And so the GE Foundation and the match that we used to get there, that went away from our community. That was $500,000. Really hard to make up $500,000 in 1 year by individual donations. We know that Yum Brands is moving a lot of its leadership to Texas. We saw about $600,000 decrease in that campaign from Yum Brands. So already we're over $1 million gone out of the campaign. So we know that we need to be able to rally more resources in times of transition like that, when we see some of our big corporations make changes, that without an endowment to draw from in those tough years, we ultimately have to decrease what the support is for these agencies. And what breaks my heart is that means fewer children getting the programs and the support that they need, fewer adults getting the access to the resources, and potentially more people in need in the ways that we don't want anybody in our community to be in need. And what I'll tell you with Metro United Way is you likely know someone very close to you who has received assistance from United Way. When we look at our impact, we touch about 1 in 3 people in our community. So that's either a neighbor, a friend, a colleague, a coworker, a family member, or maybe somebody in this room who's received help at some point throughout their life from the United Way. And we want that resource to be here in our community. The one other thing I will share with you before we take questions, and I'm going to end it on a video that I just want you all to see to feel good about what we're doing and understand more of the impact if I missed anything, is how many people have heard of 211? Oh, you are such a good group. I love it. Okay, let me just tell you, I was with 150 principals yesterday, and I asked that same question, and 2 hands went up. And it broke my heart. So 211, for those of you who didn't raise your hand, and that's okay. 211 is the resource network that Metro United Way helps support and make available so that any single person in our community can access services that are there for a whole host of reasons. 800 different services are listed in 211. And somebody said this the other day, and I loved this quote. It was, you call 911 when your house is on fire. You call 211 when your life is on fire, which I thought was really cool. It's a good way of saying it. So it's not emergency 911, right? But I have an aging parent, and I work, and I have small children, and I don't know what to do to take care of my aging parent. Where can I get assistance? Call 211. I have a friend who is in what I think is an abusive relationship. She doesn't know where to go to get help. Call 211. There is a new young mother that I know is struggling to pay for diapers and other things. Where can she get free diapers? Call 211, right? So it's every socio-demographic and income level can access services or resources through 211. It's a 24/7, 365-day-a-year resource. It is staffed by the Center for Women and Families, one of our partner agencies. So you can call that line and talk to a real individual on the other side who is very well experienced with dealing with all sorts of situations and connecting people in a compassionate way to the resources that they may need. You can text to the number 898-211 and get information about services near you as well. They'll text you right back and say, what do you need? And where, they'll have your zip code, and so they'll give you locational information. And it's also translatable in 150 different languages. So a really great resource in our community that is there for every single person to access, and we just want to make sure that every single person knows about it. So tell all your friends that it is there. Why don't I stop for a second and see if you all have any questions that you want to ask me? Yeah.
So I'm Vicki from Tri-County Community Action Agency.
Hi, Vicki.
And you talked a lot about children.
Yeah.
But I work at the adult day in the senior center.
Mm-hmm.
And we're feeling some loss from the United Way. We're feeling some less funding and stuff. And we got, yesterday with our pay stub, we got the donation letter part. Yeah. And usually it says, that we can pick where our donation goes. And, Tri-County was on there. And I noticed that it was different this year.
Yeah.
Are we not able to designate?
You are able to designate, but it's a separate form. And I'll tell you a little bit about that. So thank you for your question. And 2 things on that. When I came in, it was very interesting because I heard that we were all about education, and that was it, right? And then I started to look at where we invest our dollars. And the majority of the dollars that we provide go to basic needs support, right? So housing, food, these other things that are like critical supports for our community that touch and support some of those agencies that you just spoke about that are serving adults in our community, seniors and others. So we are still funding those things. But it was interesting to me to hear us talk about, we're really leaning in on early childhood education in particular, but also education. And I think that was a decision made to focus in on giving those kids the best start. But what we've been doing and not talking about is what I was just saying, which is we recognize we have to invest in adults around those kids. They may be grandparents, they may be parents, they may be neighbors, they may be uncles, but if kids aren't seeing strong, thriving adults, they are also going to be challenged, right? And so it's a yes and strategy. It's not just about the education pieces. It is also about investing in adults in our community and seniors in our community. But you've experienced what all of our agencies have experienced, which is a decline in the campaign over the last 10 years. And so we're trying to reverse that in this year. And then again, to folks who want to designate, they can, but part of what I want to make sure people understand is that the value of donating to United Way is donating to an organization that is looking across the spectrum and trying to make sure that we have resources that support the needs that we're seeing in our community and are being the most effective stewards of those dollars and the outcomes that we're trying to get. And when you talk about that collective impact backbone work, that we do, whether it's for the Ready for K Alliance or it's for the work with housing or other things, you need to make sure that there's that sort of umbrella organization. And what we've seen over time is a move to individuals to really just designate their funds and see Metro United Way as a pass-through organization. And we don't want anybody to see that. We don't want you to think that the only reason I give to Metro United Way is because they're going to then give my money, directly to this agency, and that's it. Because there's a lot of great work that happens to make sure that we're connecting those agencies in really important ways that help accelerate this impact. And so we're trying to get away from folks doing that just straight pass-through. And we're trying to say, make it a yes and. If you care about these nonprofits, and you know that they need support and you want to see them get that support, donate to those nonprofits, but recognize too the value of donating to the United Way above and beyond that as well.
Theresa,
Yeah.
I'd like to, I'm Gail Cox, I'm also
On our Community Impact Cabinet?
yes, actually I'm the chair for the Oldham County United Way Advisory Council. And just wanted to let you know that we've got 12 members of the community that serve on this council. And one of the things that we do is we evaluate what the needs are in Oldham County, going back to Tri-County Community Action, one of our very most important partners, because when we looked and examined the needs in Oldham County, certainly education and basic needs is important, but what was unique for us in Oldham County is our seniors don't always have the access to the resources. A lot has to do with transportation, et cetera. So we made it part of our initiative, and we have a pool of money that is brought into Oldham County by which we allocate to the different agencies. And we have identified the senior as being just as important as some of the other needs in the county. So thank you for your work. It's tremendous what they do in this county, and I just want to rest assured that in Oldham County we also look at our needs, and they may be different from Jefferson. And
That's right.
But we work great together in the same group. We're on this bus together.
Well, and I so appreciate you saying that, Gail, because it does bring up this piece of making sure that we understand what the needs of the counties are. And we got Erica Price and Roberta Studerman in the back there. And we see the same thing, in Bullitt County. I know Erica has been extremely diligent in working with our community partners there and some of the faith-based organizations, because 2 years ago, the only homeless shelter that they had in that community closed. So the priorities in Bullitt County are not education so much as they are having affordable housing and addressing homelessness. And that is the beauty of, I think, the 7-county footprint. One, you can access resources from across, but we also make sure that the dollars that are raised in those counties stay in those counties and are invested in the needs that are most pressing for those counties. So there's a real local focus. And as Gail shared, we make sure that we've got volunteer committees that know that community, live in that community, and understand the needs that they have so that we can tailor that, because the needs in Southern Indiana are slightly different as well. And not only just Southern Indiana, but across the 3 counties that are there. So thank you. And thank you, Gail.
Thank you.
Other questions? Yes?
Can you tell me the text number again?
It's 898-211.
898-211?
Yep.
This is going to help. I do community chats here in Oldham County. It's going to help me a lot with the deaf,
Yeah.
but it also with my hard of hearing seniors.
Yes.
So I have a lot of them that use the phones, but they have such a hard time hearing. So we've been communicating by text.
Yep.
So it's hard, here I am.
Yes.
texting, so
Well, and that's why text is a great option. And we're going to be coming out with we have a website, so they can also go to the website. So we can make sure we get you the link and information for the website. Okay, yep. So the text will be great. And then we're actually investing in right now an upgrade to that and a complement to it that is going to be much more intuitive and user-friendly on a phone, where you go in and you say, I am, a woman over the age of 25 and I need assistance with blah, and take you directly to all of the places that are geolocated right around you. So it'll be even more user-friendly.
Awesome.
And that'll be probably in January.
That'd be good.
Yeah. Yeah. Anything else? Comments, questions about anything I shared? No? Do you all need more coffee? Is that what's going on here? Covered a lot, but I didn't cover everything. I mean, it is the one thing that I will tell you, being 11 months at United Way, is the footprint and the reach is so broad. And it can be, because we're not the ones, like Tri-County Services, that are doing the direct service. We're the ones that are connecting and making sure that the whole system is set up to successfully deliver the resources that we need for individuals in our communities. And so we have the ability to be really broad. and make sure that we're getting those outcomes for individuals across our communities. Roberta, Erica, did I cover everything, or is there something I'm missing? You're coming up after me? Okay, well then, how about we end on the video? It's gonna put a nice bow, I think, on all of the things that I've shared with you all. It'll touch on some of the challenges, but also hopefully show you the excitement and the energy and the hope that we have around what we're doing here in our communities. And what I would end on is, for all of you who are donors and partners in this work, thank you for every single thing that you have done, that you continue to do, and that I know you will do in the future. If you have not been a part of the family of United Way, whether as a volunteer or as a partner or as a donor, please see one of us and let us know, because we would love to welcome you and have you be a part of the solutions that we're sharing across our community. Thank you for sharing your morning with me.
Problems. The ones most people don't have the stomach for. The ones nobody talks about at cocktail parties. The ones that can't be solved overnight. We go looking for them because someone needs us. If we don't, who will? We find every dollar we can to address them. But we are more than fundraisers. We are hand raisers, the game changers. The stop talking, start doing band together and take on the impossible taskmasters. United, we address the challenges of kindergarten readiness in our community. United, we confront the obstacles that keep every student from graduating on time, ready for college, a career, and life. United, we stand up for children left behind, urging families to engage in their children's success. United, with our partners, we battle to ensure every individual has the food, shelter, health, and safety they need to achieve their full potential. United, we combat system inequities so all kids and families have every opportunity to succeed in life. No matter the obstacles, no matter the odds, we surround our community's most critical problems, and we fight. We fight for Andre and Dakari. We fight for Cam, Lily, Emma, and Vincent. We fight for Brandon, Mary, and Penelope. We fight for Myra. We fight for those who need a voice and those whose names we do not know. At Metro United Way, together we fight for the education, health, and financial stability of every person in Bullitt, Jefferson, Oldham, and Shelby counties in Kentucky, and Clark, Floyd, and Harrison counties in Indiana. Because change doesn't happen alone. Hope isn't a one-man band. And there's no such thing as self-taught or self-made. We have one life. To live better, we must live united.